We're live from New Delhi. You're watching DD India News Hour, India's voice to the world. I'm Lipakshi Khurana. Coming up in the next hour. Cyclone Michaung to make landfall today. Red alert for few districts in Andhra Pradesh. Offices, schools closed. Flights halted in Chennai. Israel presses ground offensive in southern Gaza as internet and phone services go down. UN chief urges Israel to avoid worsening aid crisis. Eleven hikers dead after Indonesia volcano erupts. 12 climbers still missing. And in sports, Hockey Men's Junior World Cup 2023 begins in Kuala Lumpur today. Two-time champions India face Republic of Korea in tournament opener. And the Kenyan President William Samoei Ruto is on a state visit to India at the invitation of India's President Draupadi Murmu. He's accompanied by a high-level official delegation. President Ruto will be given a ceremonial reception at the forecourt of Rashtrapati Bhavan in New Delhi. President Ruto will also meet PM Modi on a one-on-one interaction as well as delegation-level talks, followed by joint statements and signing of agreements. The visit comes as Ruto's first to India in his present capacity. President Ruto met India's External Affairs Minister Dr. S. Jaishankar yesterday. As we told you, Kenyan President is on a state visit to India at the invitation of President Draupadi Murmu. This is a very important visit as India and Kenya are maritime neighbors with robust and multifaceted partnership marked by regular high-level visits, increasing trade and investment, and extensive people-to-people contacts. Also, the state visit of PM Narendra Modi to Kenya in 2016 had given a new impetus to the bilateral partnership. PM Narendra Modi and President Kenyatta then discussed a wide range of bilateral issues, and both leaders had signed MOUs in the field of defense, trade and developmental assistance. Today, President is going to be accorded a ceremonial welcome at the forecourt of Rashtrapati Bhavan. A state banquet will also be hosted by President Murmu in honor of President Ruto. The Kenyan President will also hold detailed discussions with Prime Minister Narendra Modi. He will also pay tribute to the father of the nation, and he will do wreath laying at Rajghat today. We may tell you a presidential visit from Kenya is taking place after a period of over 6 years and is expected to strengthen and invigorate the bilateral relations between the two countries. Kenyan president, in fact, termed his country's ties with India as fantastic and thanked PM Modi for making sure that the African Union becomes a permanent member of the G20. He said that India has made a very huge contribution, and he thanked Prime Minister Narendra Modi for making sure that Africa became a permanent member of the G20 during his presidency. He also added that we have a fantastic bilateral relationship, and it is his intention that they were going to build on their relationship during his visit to India this week. We may tell you the African Union is a continental union consisting of 55 member states located on the continent of Africa. The move to include the African Union in the G20 grouping was proposed by PM Modi earlier this June. Also, PM Modi in his opening remarks at the 18th G20 Leaders Summit invited the African Union, represented by Chairperson Azalia Soumani, to take a seat at the table of G20 leaders as a permanent member. President Ruto is accompanied by a high-level official delegation to Delhi. This visit, we may tell you, is taking place after a period of over 6 years and is expected to strengthen and invigorate the bilateral relations between the two countries. And yesterday, President Ruto had met External Affairs Minister, and now we can see President Ruto for a ceremonial reception at the Rashtrapati Bhavan. He's been accompanied by our Prime Minister Narendra Modi and President Draupadi Murmu. This is a very important state visit of President Ruto, as he was invited by President Draupadi Murmu to India. President shaking hands with President Ruto there. And now moving on to the ceremonial reception.
These are good people. Members of staff. Good morning.
Sir, what are your expectations from the visit?
Well, as you are aware, India and Kenya are great friends. We've had diplomatic engagement at different levels from way back in 1948, even before the independence of Kenya. And I have come to India this time round at the invitation of Madam President and my good friend, the Prime Minister. And my expectation is that we need to consolidate the relationship between Kenya and India. We are looking at how we can create partnership in the space of rural development, especially agriculture. We'll be looking at a space of how we can share in manufacture of vaccines, both for animal and human. We're looking at what we can do about genomics. We will be signing an agreement on also the digital space. We have a lot to learn from this great country, especially in the digital space. We have already, I did send from Kenya our Ministry of ICT to pick up lessons on digital ID, digitizing government services, leveraging on the enabler nature of technology in providing government service, which India has done very well. We will be signing an MOU in that space. We will also be looking at areas of business, what we can do to enhance the business relationship between our two countries. I share a lot in common with the Prime Minister of India on what we need to do, especially those of us from the Global South, on matters to do with the reform of the international financial architecture to make it much more fit for purpose and to ensure that it serves everybody equally and in a balanced and democratized manner. And a lot of other things that we will be discussing this afternoon and this morning with the government of India. And I want to say to both the President and Prime Minister, thank you very much for welcoming me to India.
Thank you.
Thank you.
We were watching live the ceremonial reception being accorded to President Ruto, President of Kenya, and at the forecourt of the Rashtrapati Bhavan. And still to come on DD India News Hour. We give you an update on eruption of a highly active volcano in Indonesia. Heavy snowfall has hit Moscow, disrupting traffic on roads and flights in and out of Moscow airports. And India slashes greenhouse gas emissions by 33% from 2005 to 2019.
Do you know that every year, hundreds of thousands of Indian students go abroad to pursue higher education? But now, India has opened its doors for foreign higher educational institutions who can set up and operate their campuses here.
Bringing these foreign university campuses will provide an additional opportunity to our students to study in foreign universities while staying in India.
How will you ensure that only the best universities come to India?
They should be within the top 500 ranks in the global rankings, although we have not specified any global ranking agency, but in general, or subject-wise, they should be within the 500 global rankings.
Welcome back. You're watching DD India News. I'm Lepakshi Kuran, and moving on to other stories. The southern Indian state of Andhra Pradesh is witnessing heavy rainfall, with Tirupati and Nellore districts facing the brunt of heavy downpour, leading to inundation and flooding at many places. Rescue measures are being undertaken on war footing. High alert has been sounded in Bapatla district of Andhra Pradesh, where the landfall is expected to happen today during the forenoon. The Nizampatnam harbour in Bapatla district hoisted cyclone warning signal 10, indicating a severe cyclone. NDRF is already deployed and more teams are on standby to mobilize as needed. And for more, DG NDRF Atul Karwal joins us on the phone line. Mr. Atul, wide arrangements have been made to handle the catastrophe. Rescue measures are being undertaken on war footing. What more can you tell us about the precautions being taken right now?
There is very good coordination between the state government rescue and relief teams and the NDRF teams. So all the calls for any kind of a rescue are being attended very promptly. Also, warnings and advice is being relayed to all the people in the area to observe safe behavior of not exposing themselves to the cyclone, the winds. And we are available on ground in good force. So there is no reason for worry. They can keep contacting the call helpline for any assistance they might need.
Also, the Nizampatnam harbour in Bapatla district has hoisted a cyclone warning signal 10, indicating a very severe cyclone. NDRF, as we know, is already deployed there. Can you update us with the level of preparedness?
For this, the preparedness starts several hours or days before the forecasted event. This was forecasted well in advance. So there is a survey of the low-lying areas. People are evacuated from the low-lying and dangerous areas before the landfall happens. Also, the coordination ensures that wherever it is more likely to hit in a more severe fashion, teams are available on ground, which has been done already. So I think we are well prepared to handle anything which cyclone may bring to our place.
Right. Also, when is the landfall about to happen?
The IMD has not given a precise time of landfall, though they have mentioned it will happen in the forenoon. So we expect it to be around noon because it is traveling along the coast and it would make a landfall shortly in an hour or two.
Also, can you update us on the level of basic necessities being provided, like water and electricity, to the general public?
All that is being taken care of very well by the state government. And I think no call is going unanswered for any assistance people might need in that area.
All right, very well prepared. Thank you so much for joining us, Mr. Latul there. And moving on, besides Andhra Pradesh, coastal parts of Tamil Nadu are also affected by the cyclone. Chennai city has witnessed heavy rains and thunderstorms in the last 24 hours. Cars were swept away as floodwater flowed through the streets. The city continues to face massive water logging, while the airport, one of the busiest in India, shut operations until Tuesday morning. With waters receded and no stagnation on runways, cleanup crews tackled slush and filth. Air traffic management is prioritizing departures to assist stranded passengers. There are 21 aircraft on ground and around 1,500 people in the terminal. Well, Priyanka Jain joins us from Chennai on the phone for more. Well, Priyanka, what is the current situation there right now?
If you could see, there is massive rescue operations going on throughout the city, and the Chief Minister himself has taken the stock of the situation. He has visited many areas and has seen how the rescue operations are going on. As far as rescue operations are concerned, in the low-lying areas, NDRF has deployed boats, and the state government is trying to pump out water as early as possible. The major areas, if you could see, slowly the water pumping has come, and it is slowly getting cleared.
Right.
Things are getting back to normalcy. So by tomorrow, the entire city may come back in normal. That's
right. The rescue operations, as you say, are underway. Are the people facing any difficulties there?
The major difficulties people are facing is there is no power since yesterday. As you could see, this is the highest rainfall recorded after, they say, the state is saying after 70 years they have seen this major. In 36 hours they have witnessed heavy rains. Due to that, even they are trying to, do the rescue operations. People are facing power cuts. Commemoration has become a major issue. There are no public transport going. Yesterday, if you could see, there were 300 public buses which were running. Today, the state is trying to increase them as the water logging gets cleared up. And there were lots of trees fallen in the state. There are around 8 people who have lost their life. As of now, if you could see, 8 people have lost their life due to this cyclone. And there are various areas. People are also facing milk. Because of transportation, there is no proper milk supply, water supply also, there is an issue. And people who are there in low-lying areas where the entire 5 feet water is logged, those people are the basic amenity, basic facility, they are facing huge problems.
All right, Priyanka, thank you so much for that update from there. And moving on, 3 survivors were found in Indonesia after the Marapi volcano erupted in West Sumatra. Search operations, which were halted temporarily over safety concerns, resumed. The rescue team recovered 11 dead bodies out of 75 climbers who were in the area at the time of eruption. 12 others are missing, and the search was suspended on Monday after another smaller eruption. There were 49 climbers evacuated from the area earlier, and many were being treated for burns. Authorities raised the alert to the second highest level people and prohibited residents from going within 3 kilometers of the crater. And our correspondent Patrick Falk tells us more from Singapore on this.
Efforts had been halted on Monday due to another volcanic eruption. There was a new burst of hot ash, which was as high as 800 meters, according to officials, and that had made things very difficult, and conditions just weren't suitable to continue, so things had to be stopped on Monday. They have resumed now, but the situation is still very difficult. There is still a fear of further eruptions. There has been bad weather, poor visibility and rain that rescuers are having to contend with. We're told there are 120 rescuers involved. They're having to do everything by hand and bring people that they've managed to retrieve down the volcano by hand because the conditions aren't suitable for air retrieval in case of further volcanic activity. We have seen images of at least one person being stretchered off the volcano, and also heard reports about people being retrieved, being treated for burns at hospitals, and also really being in a bit of a state of trauma, you might say. But the whereabouts and condition of the remaining 12 climbers remains uncertain. It does seem it is a bit of a race against time to try and retrieve them.
Well, also a heavy rainfall has hit the Russian capital, disrupting traffic on roads and flights in and out of Moscow airports. Meteorologists say Sunday's snowfall, powered by a strong cyclone that formed over southern Europe last week, marked the absolute daily record in Moscow since observations began in 1878. Dasha Chernyshova has more from snow-hit Moscow.
Moscow has been hit by the strongest snowfall in decades. It began on Sunday and continued well into Monday. The snowfall brought additional 23 centimeters to already high levels of snow in the Russian capital, according to Deputy Mayor of Moscow, Pyotr Byrykov. About 135,000 people and 18,000 pieces of equipment were involved in the snow clearing effort. The works are ongoing, but Muscovites still find it hard to move around the capital because of the strong snowdrifts. Authorities issued an orange weather advisory due to strong winds as well. According to meteorologists, Sunday's snowfall marked the absolute daily record in Moscow since observations began in 1878. According to meteorologist Evgeny Tishkovets, such snow cover is usual for February when snow piles hit their regular peak. Over 70 flights were cancelled at all major airports of the Russian capital, and at least 200 trucks got stuck in the snow since storm began and required assistance from road traffic workers, according to Moscow Transport Department. Dasha Chernyshova reported in Moscow for DD India.
Well, France is hosting a finance-focused summit on climate and growth today, bringing together scientific and economic experts to address the challenges in keeping to commitments of the Paris 2015 climate agreement. DD India's Ross Cullen reports for more.
Well, this will be the third event of what's known as the Rendezvous of Bercy for a summit focused on growth and climate, and it's taking place at the building you can see behind me, which is the French Ministry of Finance. It's hosted by Bruno Le Maire, who is France's economy minister, and the point of Tuesday's gathering is to bring together international personalities and experts from the world of economics and science. The first two editions in 2017 and 2019 had as their respective focus technological disruption and inequality and redefining capitalism in the 21st century. This event, the third edition here at the Ministry of Finance in Paris, has as its point of focus the environment and economic growth in the face of climate change. Some of the questions that will be addressed include how to finance the green transition and reconciling economic growth with the ongoing impacts of climate change. Now, Bill Gates, who's the co-founder of Microsoft, will be one of the main speakers at the event, along with the chief economist of the International Monetary Fund and the chair of the UK's Climate Change Committee. Over the past few days, the French President Emmanuel Macron has been attending COP28 meetings in Dubai, and one of the issues he has addressed is trying to ensure that countries that signed the 2015 Paris Climate Agreement continue to fulfil their obligations under the deal. In Paris, Ross Cullen reporting for DD India.
Well, India has slashed greenhouse gas emissions by 33% from 2005 to 2019, highlighting the country's effort to promote renewable energy. DD India's Tapas Bhattacharya reports for more.
India has shown remarkable progress in reducing its greenhouse gas emissions. India's emission intensity dropped by an astonishing 33% from 2005 to 2019. This achievement places India well on track to fulfill its commitment to the United Nations Convention on Climate Change, aiming to reduce emission intensity by 45% from 2005 level by 2030. Notably, the country experienced the fastest reduction in emission intensity to date, with an annual average reduction of 3% in the period of 2016-2019. This remarkable progress is largely attributed to government's initiatives towards renewable, despite fossil fuel maintaining a dominant position in the energy mix. The significant increase in forest cover has played a pivotal role in achieving this remarkable feat. As of 2019, India boasts of a substantial forest cover of 24.56%, covering 80.73 million hectares. India's GDP between 2005 to 2019 has grown with cumulative annual growth rate of about 7%, whereas the emission grew about 4%. This shows that India has successfully continued to decouple its economic growth from greenhouse gas emissions, resulting in the reduction of the emission intensity of its GDP by 33% between 2005 and 2019. India's share of non-fossil sources-based installed capacity of electricity generation in 2023 is more than 41%. India achieved its NDC target.
Now let's go live across to Rajghat, where Kenyan President William Samoei Ruto has arrived to pay his tributes to Mahatma Gandhi, the father of the nation. As we told you, Kenyan President has been on a state visit to India with the invitation of President Murmu. He's been here also. He was accorded a ceremonial reception at the court of Rashtrapati Bhavan earlier today. Now at Rajghat, President Ruto paying his tributes to Mahatma Gandhi. President Ruto is on a 3-day visit to India, which began yesterday. It is his first presidential trip from the influential East African nation in over 6 years. It is Ruto's first visit to India in his present capacity as well. The Kenyan leader was accorded a ceremonial reception, and he will hold talks with his counterpart Draupadi Murmu, and he will hold wide-ranging talks with Prime Minister Narendra Modi also. President Ruto is also accompanied by a high-level official delegation, and the visit is expected to strengthen and invigorate the bilateral relations between the two countries. President Ruto there paying floral tribute to Mahatma Gandhi at Rajghat. We saw President Ruto there at Rajghat paying tribute to the father of the nation, Mahatma Gandhi there. And President Ruto has been started his visit yesterday to India. He's on a 3-day visit to India, and the visit comes to he's on a visit to India, which is just 3 months after the 55-nation African Union was inducted into the G20 at its New Delhi summit, following India's strong push for it by Prime Minister Narendra Modi. And as we told you, President Draupadi Murmu had invited the President of the Republic of Kenya, William Samoei Ruto. He has been on a state visit to India since yesterday. The Kenyan leader will meet his Indian counterpart, also Draupadi Murmu, today, and he will hold wide-ranging talks with Prime Minister Narendra Modi. Also, Kenyan President, it is his first visit to India in his present capacity as well. And still to come on DD India News Hour. President Ruto there signing the official book at Rajghat after paying tribute to Mahatma Gandhi, the father of the nation. As we told you, President Ruto is on an official 3-day state visit to India since yesterday. He's set to meet the President Draupadi Murmu today, and later he's set to have official talks with the Prime Minister Narendra Modi. We may tell you, Kenya and India are members of international fora like United Nations, Non-Aligned Movement, Commonwealth of Nations, G77, G15, and the Indian Ocean Rim, Association of Regional Cooperation, and often cooperate with each other on these fora. President Ruto was also accorded a ceremonial reception at the forecourt of the Rashtrapati Bhavan. He said that India and Kenya have been great friends since 1947, and his expectations were to consolidate the relations between India and Kenya. He's also looking at digital space, which he expects to conquer and which India is doing very well in. And still to come on DD India News Hour. Zelensky to address senators on military aid today as White House warns Putin could win if Ukraine aid dries up. Viksit Bharat Sankalp Yatra creates awareness on various government schemes in Indian cities of Hapur and Delhi. The President Ruto at Rajghat after the wreath laying at the Rajghat. He's been accorded few gifts there. Welcome back. You're watching DD India News. I'm Lipakshi Khurana, and time now for a recap of the headlines. Cyclone Michaung to make landfall today. Red alert for few districts in Andhra Pradesh. Offices, schools closed. Flights halted in Chennai. Israel presses ground offensive in southern Gaza as internet and phone services go down. UN chief urges Israel to avoid worsening aid crisis. Indonesia's Marapi volcano erupts for a second day. Rescue team recovers 11 dead bodies out of 75 climbers who were in the area at the time of eruption. And shifting focus, it's now been 4 days since the week-long temporary ceasefire between Israel and Gaza expired, and the Israeli military are continuing to push south in the Gaza Strip. Israeli tanks and other armored vehicles are now reported to be operating close to Khan Yunis, the largest city in the southern Gaza Strip. The intensified strikes come after having largely gained control of the now devastated north. Meanwhile, the Israel Defense Forces are repeatedly asking tens of thousands of Palestinians to move from areas across the south. The idea believes the Hamas commanders are in the city, where hundreds of thousands are sheltering since fleeing the fighting in the north. An Israeli army spokesperson, Dan El-Hagari, in a briefing said the Hamas deliberately embeds itself among civilians so that Gazans will bear the consequences of Hamas atrocities. He added that the forces are taking extensive measures to mitigate harm to the civilians that Hamas uses as shields.
We have entered a new phase in our war against Hamas. Hamas broke the humanitarian pause when it violated the hostage release agreement by refusing to release women, children, and babies as agreed. Hamas also fired rockets at Israeli homes. It should be clear to everyone by now, Hamas chooses war. It has been 8 weeks since October 7th, and Hamas is still holding 137 of our people hostage. Babies, the elderly, women and men. Hamas does not value human life, Israeli or Palestinian. Hamas is willing to sacrifice its own people to advance its genocidal agenda. We will operate in maximum force against Hamas terrorists and infrastructures while minimizing harm to the civilian that Hamas places around them as shields.
Meanwhile, United Nations Secretary General Antonio Guterres appealed to Israel on Monday to avoid further action that would exacerbate the already catastrophic humanitarian situation in Gaza. UN spokesperson Stephen Dujarric said, and I quote, "The Secretary General reiterates the need for unimpeded and sustained humanitarian aid flow to meet the needs of the people throughout the Strip. For people ordered to evacuate, there is nowhere safe to go and very little to survive on," unquote. Moving on now, the White House is warning that funding for Ukraine will run out by the end of the year. It said Kyiv would be kneecapped in its war against Russia if Congress fails to approve new aid. From Washington, DD India's Kate Fisher reports.
There is no magical pot of funding available. We are out of money and nearly out of time. That's the stark warning from the White House's budget director in a letter to congressional leaders, calling on them to pass President Joe Biden's request for $106 billion in emergency funding. That total also covers his other foreign policy priorities, including Israel and the Indo-Pacific. Shalanda Young said that without congressional action, the US simply will run out of money by the end of the year to procure more weapons and equipment for Ukraine and to provide equipment from US military stocks. But President Biden's funding request remains stuck in gridlock on Capitol Hill under mounting Republican opposition to helping Kyiv. Some lawmakers, especially in the Senate, where backing for Ukraine runs deeper, are trying to negotiate a bipartisan deal that would contain aid for Kyiv, alongside new immigration procedures to reduce the number of migrants arriving in the US through its southern border. But those talks appear to be faltering, and even if it gets through the Senate, it's unclear if it can pass the Republican-led House, whose new Speaker, Mike Johnson, has been sceptical of funding for Ukraine. Kate Fisher in Washington reporting for DD India.
Meanwhile, Ukrainian President Volodymyr Zelensky has been invited to address U.S. Senate at a closed briefing via video as part of a classified briefing to hear what is at stake. The closed briefing for senators is scheduled for 3 p.m. EST on Tuesday and will feature U.S. national security officials. Back home, Viksit Bharat Sankalp Yatra, with an aim to extend the benefits of the development schemes to all the citizens, reached Mayur Vihar and Ashoknagar in India's capital city of New Delhi. This endeavour is poised to pass through all 11 districts of Delhi and cover more than 600 places. Various camps were organised with an aim to making people aware about various welfare schemes of the central government. Prime Minister Narendra Modi started the Viksit Bharat Sankalp Yatra from Kunti in the Indian state of Jharkhand on the 15th of November. Also, Viksit Bharat Sankalp Yatra reached the Fuldhara village of Hapur district in India's Uttar Pradesh, where villagers were given information about the schemes being run by the central government. During the program, many departments set up stalls and gave on-the-spot information about the schemes of the central government. And still to come on DD India News Hour. 66 Indian airports are operating on 100% green energy. UK unveils tough new rules designed to cut immigrant numbers. And Rafael Nadal, the former tennis world #1, gears up for a comeback after hip surgery.
Do you know that every year, hundreds of thousands of Indian students go abroad to pursue higher education? But now, India has opened its doors for foreign higher educational institutions who can set up and operate their campuses here.
Bringing these foreign university campuses will provide an additional opportunity to our students to study in foreign universities while staying in India.
How will you ensure that only the best universities come to India?
They should be within the top 500 ranks in the global rankings, although we have not specified any global ranking agency, but in general, or subject-wise, they should be within the 500 global rankings.
Welcome back. You're watching DD India News. I'm Lepakshi Khurana, and on to some business news now. Indian Minister of Civil Aviation, General V.K. Singh, said that airports like Delhi, Mumbai, Hyderabad and Bengaluru have achieved level 4+ and high airports international council accreditation and have become carbon neutral. Additionally, 66 Indian airports are operating on 100% green energy. The information was given in a written reply in the upper house of the Indian Parliament on Monday. He also said that 14 airports in the country are being operated under public-private partnership. India's Ministry of Civil Aviation has taken several like mapping of carbon emission at the airports to maintain carbon neutrality and achieving net zero carbon emission. Also, benchmark indexes Sensex and Nifty opened at fresh all-time high gains on Tuesday, aided by strong domestic macroeconomic data and elevated bets of a US rate cut in March, while analysts saw momentum picking up in the ongoing rally after the ruling Bharatiya Janata Party's victory in key state elections. The NSE Nifty 50 index rose 0.52% to 20,794.50 points, notching a record high in a row. The S&P BSE Sensex was up by 0.54% to an all-time high of 69,204.10 as of 9:51 a.m. IST. And the UK is sharply increasing the salary required to secure a skilled worker visa for the country. It's part of plans to try and bring down overall net migration numbers to Britain. DD India's Oli Barrett reports from London.
UK Home Secretary James Cleverly confirming new measures designed to bring down that overall net migration number, and the headline move that he is making is raising significantly the salary requirement that you're going to need to get a skilled job visa for the UK. So anyone coming, for example, from India to Britain to work here in the United Kingdom will have to prove in future that they have a salary for their new job of £38,700. Now that is around 4 million Indian rupees per year, and that is up from previously £26,200. So it is a major spike in that salary threshold that is going to be required. One of the other changes, significant changes, that the Home Secretary James Cleverly has announced is that it'll be much harder now for dependents of people who do secure visas to come to the UK with them. The Home Secretary says that that part of the system has been, in his words, abused in the past, and so he's clamping down on the number of people that will come to the UK as dependents of people who secure visas. As I say, the reason the Home Secretary is making these changes is because in the last 12-month period, net migration to the UK was over 745,000. The UK government says that is far too high and needs to come down, and that's why it's making these changes. Ollie Barrett in London reporting for DD India.
And time now for sports news. Two-time champions India will today start their campaign in the FIH Hockey Men's Junior World Cup 2023 against the Republic of Korea in Kuala Lumpur, Malaysia. Uttam Singh will captain the Indian side. The 13th edition of the Junior Men's Hockey World Cup will see 16 teams divided equally into 4 groups compete for the top 2 spots in their group and secure a place in the quarterfinals. The bottom 2 teams from each group will enter classification rounds. And in tennis, Rafael Nadal, the former world #1, is gearing up for a comeback after hip surgery. In a recent Instagram video, he shared his nerves about returning after nearly a year. Details in this report. Rafael Nadal, the former world #1, is gearing up for a comeback after hip surgery. In a recent Instagram video, he shared his nerves about returning after nearly a year, expressing a desire to forgive himself if the comeback is gradual. The Spaniard posted a short video to his Instagram account explaining he has felt nervous about announcing his plan to return.
I've been afraid to announce things because in the end it's a year without competing and it's a hip operation. But what worries me the most is not the hip, it's everything else. I think I'm ready and I trust and hope that things go well. It gives me the opportunity to enjoy myself on the court.
Having last played at the Australian Open due to the hip flexor issue, Nadal underwent surgery in June and now aims to embrace the journey without the intense standards he's known for. In the video, the tennis great says he hopes to be able to play without demanding of himself the high standards he has held himself to throughout his storied career.
I have internalized what I have had throughout my life, which is to demand myself the maximum. And right now, what I really hope is to be able to not do that. Not to demand of me the maximum. To accept that things are going to be very difficult at the beginning and to give myself the necessary time and forgive myself if things go wrong at the beginning, which is a very big possibility.
The 22-time Grand Slam champion anticipates feeling the familiar mix of nerves, excitement and doubts as he steps back onto the court. Well, South Africa have named their squads for the multi-format home series against India beginning from the 10th of December. The tour begins with 3 T20s followed by 3 ODIs and finally 2 tests, which will be a part of the ICC World Test Championship 2023-25 cycle. Temba Bavuma and Kagiso Rabada have been rested for the ODI leg of the tour and will return for test. Giral Koedzi, Marco Jansen and Lungi Nagedi will miss the final T20I as well as the ODI series. 3 players all-round Milhali, Mabogwana, batter David Bedingham and fast bowler Nantre Berger have been awarded their maiden international call-ups. Well, that's all for this edition of DD India News Hour. Let us know your thoughts on the news of the day. You can connect with us on Facebook, X, formerly known as Twitter and Instagram. We'll be back with more news as it breaks here on DD India. I'm Lipakshi Khurana from all of us here in Delhi. Thanks for watching DD India News Hour.